Welcome to PixelTunes Radio,
a podcast where we have fun
talking about video games
and video game music.
I'm Mike.
And I am Ed.
And this is episode 110, Saigo no Free Picks.
Saigo no Free Picks.
Very specific name for this episode.
Yeah, so this episode's going to get a little heavy.
Yeah, a little bit.
So those of you who might know a little bit of Japanese, Saigo no Free Picks means final free picks.
Yeah, or the
end,
the end right.
of the free picks.
Mm-hmm.
This is the last episode of PixelTunes Radio. So, it was a great show. Good night. We'll see you now.
See you later.
Yeah, so, I don't know. How do you want to explain this? We've outgrown the show, I think. At least that's the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I would say that's a pretty good way of explaining it. I think with so many changes this year and the past probably year, I'd say, I think we both have kind of needed change. And I think we needed to make some adjustments and make some changes, and maybe, I don't even really know how to put it. It's tough when you really think about it off the top of your head, but yeah. I think ultimately what we needed to do was we needed a clean break. And we had discussed doing the episodes up until the 5th anniversary, and I was like, let's just end it. Like, there's no...
Yeah. I think that we've always kind of compromised with each other throughout the entire almost 5 years of the show.
Yeah.
And not that compromise is bad, and I think the blend of our compromises made for a show that people really enjoy.
Yeah.
And I know that because people tell us that. But I think we've both grown as podcasters, both technically and just, in terms of skill and experience, that we can kind of follow our own dreams without compromise.
Follow your dreams.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think what will happen going forward is you'll see both of us following those dreams without compromise. So that means basically what's happening is that PixelTunes might be ending, but Mike and I are both going to go on to do our own individual shows.
Right.
And that doesn't mean we're never going to collaborate again either. We live literally 10 minutes away from each other.
Right.
Yeah. So it's going to be very easy for us to get together and do things and create content together.
Yeah. I mean, you'll still be on Dude You Haven't Played This Game. You'll still be part of, if you want to do like plays, like PixelTunes plays or whatever, we could always do stuff like that. So we've been working this entire time on building this VGM building, if you will, this giant tower.
PixelTunes Creepy Castle.
Yeah, and we put, 4 years of our lives into providing you guys excellent VGM, and I think that, we've both grown so much over these 4 years. We've both discovered so many different tastes and interests in video game music. I know myself, for video games and video game music, I've just completely changed in the 4 years that we've done this. We've spoken with so many awesome people and, not only fellow podcasters, but also guests that we've had on the show, and even composers have graced our presence. And giving us a couple hours of their lives just to tell their story. So
absolutely,
it's looking back on it, I'm very proud of the work that we did with PixelTunes Radio. I'm happy with where we've left things, and we've kind of reached the point where things needed to change, and there was really no other way to do it other than to kind of, step away from the show.
Yeah. I mean, we also considered each doing our own VGM projects and also doing PixelTunes.
Right.
But it's like, it would be too much.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to individually focus on everything and still put out quality stuff all the way around.
That's
Plus,
true.
with your YouTube series and a baby on the way, you'd just be drowning.
No. Yeah.
So we feel this is the best way to do it. We're sorry that it's so sudden and kind of without warning, but we feel that the fact that we're both doing new stuff, and we're not talking about like we're gonna do new stuff and it's never gonna materialize. Like we already have this planned.
Things are ready.
I've already got lots of content ready to go when I launch. So Mike, why don't you tell us about your upcoming show?
Okay.
What's it going to be about? What's it going to be like?
So I'm doing a video game music podcast. So we'll stay. So we'll stay this in the same vein. It's called X VGM Radio.
So it's formerly VGM.
Yeah.
So it's not VGM anymore?
No, it's the letter X. And the reason for that is internet radio stations are X something or other instead of like W, like instead of WVGM radio or anything like that. We're not an actual radio station because we're online. So it's going to be XVGM Radio. And I'm going to be co-hosting it with Justin Schneider. Justin was on a couple episodes when Ed was away. So we had Brian on to do the John Baker episode, and then Justin came on, did the Super NES episode, and Wario, that's right. And so I was very impressed with Justin and the work that he did on those episodes. I feel like Justin's taste is a little more, I don't know, I want to say eclectic, but I don't want to sound negative towards Ed, but like that we
he has
a
different view on VGM.
Yeah,
a fresh take.
Yeah, he has a fresh take, and it's been really interesting to see some of the stuff that he's picked for the things that we have coming up. The show itself is going to be very similar to PixelTunes Radio in the sense that it's going to be stylized like a radio show. When Ed and I were building PixelTunes, one of the things I really wanted to do is make it more like a radio show, more like, you know, where you'd have callers and you'd have commercials and things like that. And we never really did callers that, like, I don't think we ever did callers.
It's hard to do on a podcast.
Yeah, so it's kind of hard, but we figured out a way to do it.
Cool.
And it's going to be really fun. It's going to be less emphasis on the game description itself. Like, we're not going to spend 5 minutes talking about the game alone. Mm-hmm. We're going to be mostly focusing on the music and the composers and a little bit about the game, but our big focus is mostly going to be on the music and the composers.
Very cool.
And what we thought of the music and everything like that. So we've already got multiple shows lined up. We've got guests that are going to be joining us for some of these shows, and it's going to be cool. It's going to be really good. So you could check that out at www.xvgmradio.com. The website is still being built, so we're, you know, if you go there now, I don't know when you're listening to this, but if you go there now, at the time of this recording, you're not going to see much, but we hope to have it built up fully by our launch. Also, Twitter is at XVGM Radio and Facebook.com/groups/XVGM Radio. So it'll be very similar to the PixelTunes group. We're going to keep the PixelTunes group open so that way we can post our new content for the other group. And then our first episode is going to debut June 13th of this year, 2018. So you can check that out, and then we'll have episodes every other week.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very
a
cool.
lot of really cool content.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to listening to it myself.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to pick a lot of different stuff. Like, we've got tracks in here that Justin picked for the first episode that I was like, I would have never seen you pick that. And It was cool because I'm like, oh my god, I get to like hear somebody else talk about like a Capcom style guitar track or something like that. That's going to be pretty cool. So it's going to be neat to have a different take on it. But you've got your own thing coming out.
Sure do.
Yeah. So what do you got?
So my show is going to be called The VG Embassy, and it's going to be kind of exactly what it sounds like. So I'm envisioning it as I'm like a prime VGM minister, and I'm going to have VG ambassadors on the show. Mm-hmm. So I'm basically going to be the main person behind the whole thing. I'll be on every episode, and each episode I will have a different person on with me, or I'll do a solo show. So I've already got 4 episodes recorded, and when I bring a guest on the show, it's kind of up to them what kind of show they want to do, what the theme wants to be. I want to help them build the show of their dreams, kind of. Mm-hmm. So my concept is that they are a VG ambassador. They're bringing their VGM culture to my VG embassy. Mm-hmm. And so it's all about community. It's all about sharing. I was really hit hard when VGM Jukebox decided that they were going to end their show coming up in July. Emily's a very close friend of mine, and I kind of knew about it a little bit ahead of time before they announced it. And I felt like with the ending of that show, it's kind of dealing a big blow to the VGM community. And so I don't want it to feel like I'm like blowing up their spot. Mm-hmm. But because there's going to be such a big hole left on that Friday of every week, so my show will be airing where VGM Jukebox used to be,
right,
on Friday. Emily is actually going to be my very first guest. We did a huge show on Echo the Dolphin, her passion which we recorded. It's ready to go. It's a fantastic show. So even Echo Jr., I got my little son, Logan, to get a kid's view of what the Echo Jr. games are all about. So we kind of really cover it. I got Alex Messenger on for a show. He's talking about hockey. I got Cam Worma lined up. He's a huge Rush fan, so we're talking about prog rock. So I'm really going to tailor these VG ambassadors to the different types of themes that we have. And if they don't want to do a theme, if like Purnell from Rhythm and Pixels comes on and he's like, dude, I really miss VGM Jukebox, I want to do a listener pick show.
Right.
We'll do a listener pick show.
That's cool.
If Rob comes on and he's like, I love pixelated audio, I want to deep dive into one specific game, get really into the sound chip, we'll do that kind of show.
Yeah.
So I want it to be kind of a different surprise every single episode. We're going to have some blind listens where me and a guest will sit down, have no knowledge.
Stab them in the eyes.
Yeah, really, you can't see anything.
Yeah. Forever.
Sit down, and neither one of us will have any knowledge of the game that we're talking about or the composer, and just listen to music from a game and kind of give our raw feedback on a first-time listen. So all sorts of crazy ideas I have, all sorts of Patreon tiers I have for people to participate in the show and get their ideas on the VG Embassy. So I'm really looking forward to it. The URL is going to be thevgembassy.com. It's not even a gleam in my eye yet. I'm still got to figure out how to set that up. But again, I will have a Facebook group and a Twitter presence, and I'll be announcing all that. I'm going to be guesting on an episode of Rhythm and Pixels at the end of June. And by that time, I should have most of my stuff set up. So stay tuned for that, and I'll announce some more details on that show when it comes around. But I am really looking forward to doing it. You know, Mike, I've already told you you're welcome to come as a guest, and we'll try to do something different from PixelTunes Radio and see what kind of different dynamics we can come up with when you come on my show.
Be cool.
So I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's going to be a very different show, the thing that you're going to be doing. So it's going to be tailor-made for a community audience. So
and very different from your show and very different from PixelTunes.
Yeah.
And I guess the way we're doing our shows, you can kind of tell what our different tastes were and where, like, I feel like PixelTunes was kind of an elastic band that we're both kind of pulling on sometimes. You know? Like, you want to go the goofy radio route, and I really wanted to get kind of deep into personal reactions about VGM and stuff. So, but this allows us to do both of that.
That's true.
And the audience gets to hear both of them. So it's
win-win. Agreed. Totally agreed. Yeah, so we're actually going to be taking PixelTunes spot. So, and we are going to be going back to the every other week. So it starts the 13th, and we have 3 episodes pretty much like all set and ready to go. The first episode will be the evolution of Nintendo console music, and that's essentially going to be from start to finish, basically. A couple tracks from Nintendo, some tracks from Super Nintendo, N64, and then, all the way up until the Switch.
Very cool.
So it's going to, you can kind of see the evolution of how the music was created or how it changed.
Yeah.
Different composers, different companies, some tracks that you're going to be like, I've never heard this track. Like, what? So that's going to be cool. And then I'm actually going to be taking, this was originally going to be a PixelTunes episode, but we decided to, with, of course, discussing with Ed, making sure it's okay, to do our second episode on Toet Plan.
What? You never told me about. Just kidding.
So, yeah, that's going to be pretty cool because we're going to be diving deep in. It's going to be a shmup heaven because there's mostly shmups.
Yeah, they're a big shmup company.
Big time shmup.
Schmuppity.
So it should be pretty cool. I'm not going to talk too much else about other episodes, but just know that we have right now in total about 6 episodes planned, with, of course, more on the way. So, we're going to be getting a ton of composers on, different stuff like that. So if you like PixelTunes and you like the format and everything, but you want it a little goofier, more, silly, and less long-winded, I think you're really going to like
Very cool.
XVGM Radio. So, yep.
Yeah, I've got 6 episodes planned to be recorded before release. I've got 4 of those 6 recorded. So I'm going to go weekly at least for the first 6 weeks.
Oh, okay.
And then depending on workload and how the other episodes go, release schedule will be TBA. But at least for the first month and a half, you can look forward to weekly episodes of
Very cool.
the VG Embassy.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, enough of that. We'll talk a little bit more at the end of the episode as far as, we don't want to leave this episode on without thanking people. So we have a long list of people to thank. You may be one of them. So stay tuned to the end
Unless you're my
list.
mom.
Yeah, in which case, still thanks, because she had you. So,
Right.
All right, let's move on. So I have picked a track, and it is awesome. Our first track on our last episode is Looney Tunes Carrot Crazy. It's also called Bugs Bunny and Lola Bunny Operation Carrot Patch in Europe. It came out in 98 in Europe and 99 in North America on the Game Boy Color. The track is Treasure Island, and it's by Mr. Alberto Jose Gonzalez.
So you know it's good.
Alright, welcome back. That was Looney Tunes Carrot Crazy, also known as Operation Carrot Patch in Europe. It was the 98 European Game Boy Color release, 99 in North America. That was Treasure Island by Alberto Jose Gonzalez. What do you think of this? I know you're a big fan.
Absolutely love this track.
Yeah.
It's so Spanish.
Yeah.
It definitely feels like, the B section feels just like Feliz Navidad. It's got that same candor. If this song wasn't basically a cover of an existing Spanish song that we might not know about, I would hedge a bet that Alberto probably wrote the song with lyrics in mind. That lead is so lyrical,
very
and
vocal,
sing-song. Again, I know I call it his signature bounce, but this song has that Gonzalez bounce all the way through it. It's great. I mean, he was a master of the Game Boy sound hardware, and this shows that off very well.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a great track. I found this accidentally. I was going through, I can't even remember what I was going through, but I found this track and absolutely fell in love with it. The rest of the soundtrack's also really great. The game is fun. It's really good. It's a platformer where you play as Bugs and Lola. You could switch between the two, I think, with the select button. And you're essentially just kind of jumping around, and it's very similar to Bugs Bunny Birthday Blowout in a lot of ways. I don't remember if you get a hammer or not with Bugs. I think you might. But it definitely...
Bugs gets hammered. That would be a great subtitle for the game. Looney Tunes, Bugs gets hammered.
It's very similar to Donkey Kong Country in the sense that you're just trying to go after your carrots that have been stolen.
Gotcha.
So it's pretty basic plot, pretty simple, but the gameplay's fun, and I was really digging it. So it's a cool little game.
So which title do you prefer, Looney Tunes Carrot Crazy or Bugs Bunny and Lola Bunny Operation Carrot Patch?
Carrot Crazy is too similar to Crazy Castle.
Yeah. Agreed.
So I prefer Operation Carrot Patch. I think it's I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. It's a long title. Mm-hmm. Maybe like Looney Tunes Operation Carrot Patch.
Yeah,
might be a little bit better to kind of combine the two, but I don't know. I do prefer the Bugs Bunny and Lola Bunny Operation Carrot Patch.
The developer worked on a bunch of Looney Tunes games, so I believe Alberto Jose Gonzalez worked on a couple other Looney Tunes soundtracks as well. I think there's a game called Alert, which I've been trying to hunt down for a little while. I think he did the soundtrack on that too, and that one's pretty good.
Very cool.
Yeah, so, I mean, what else could we say about Alberto Jose Gonzalez? I mean, Turok Rage Wars, Turok 3, Turok 2, Turok 1, pretty much all the Game Boy Color Turok games, he's done it all. He was, not to get too nostalgic or whatever, but since this is the last episode, I remember the first time I heard an Alberto track, and it was the Game Boy episode that we did.
Yes.
And you picked that Turok Rage Wars, I think, track.
Yep.
And I was just like blown away.
Yep.
I was like, I didn't know the Game Boy Color could sound this good.
Just previous to that, I had never heard of him either. Mm-hmm. And I was doing requests on the Final Fantasy Shrine forums back then, and lots of people were introducing me to brand new soundtracks, and somebody requested a whole bunch of Alberto Gonzalez soundtracks, and I'm listening to them and I'm like, holy cow, this guy's amazing. Why have I never heard of him?
Yeah.
And so I was so glad that happened because he's just been kind of a mainstay on PixelTunes. He's a great personality on Facebook. He's got games coming out now with Abbey Light Studios. They're creating them.
Curse of Castilia, right?
Yep, Curse of Castillo.
Yep.
What just came out? Super Hydora. He's been involved in. That's an awesome. It's like a Metroid-like shoot 'em up game, which just came out on limited run games for the PS4. So he's still in the business. He deserves all the respect that we've ever given him, in my opinion. So, great dude, great composer, and a great programmer as well.
Yeah,
so, the full package.
Word. All right, what do you got for us?
Next up is a PC Engine game. This is Area 5 Fortress from Barunba. This came out in 1990, and it's composed by Makiko Ito and Hiroshi Nishikawa. And we're back. That was Barunba, released on the PC Engine in 1990, composed by Makiko Ito and Hiroshi Nishikawa. Shoot 'em up game, definitely a shoot 'em up style song.
Galloping bass.
Yeah, what'd you think of this one?
Galloping bass.
That's all you need to say.
It's right up my alley. I mean, I like the tones here. I think that for a PC Engine game, this sounds totally different than what I've heard before on the PC Engine. It's a lot more, I don't know, the synths are like drawn out a little bit more. They sound a little bit more 16-bit and a little less 8-bit.
Yeah, a little less textured.
Yeah.
On the PC Engine, you tend to get a lot of really thick,
like a minimalist 16-bit.
Yeah. But this, it has a great heroic feel to it. Everything sounds very clean. And I love the stereo effects. You get that kind of arpeggio, like back and forth in your ears with some good percussion, a couple different parts throughout. It gives me a feeling of hopefulness, which is interesting because this is the last level of the game.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming it's very difficult because I tried playing through this game and oh my god, is it hard. The gameplay is really interesting. You're in this kind of round pod and your ship is pretty big. And you've got...
That's what she said.
Ooh, nice. You've got a gun on the top and a gun on the bottom of you. And...
That's also what she said.
Also what she said. But when you press the one button, your guns rotate.
That's also what she said.
I don't know how that happens. But anyways, so it rotates clockwise, which is good. I mean, so now you have the ability to shoot from all directions. So that gives the game the ability to throw enemies from all directions at you. And the levels are set up like R-type levels, so they're very kind of closed quarters. There will be like little paths that sometimes you realize at the last minute, oh, I can't take that path, and you gotta back around. It's not as difficult as memorization crazy as R-type is.
Yeah.
But the one thing that bugged me is that, so the PC Engine TurboGrafx 16 controllers look almost identical to NES controllers. So you've got the D-pad, two buttons in the middle, like start and select. Although I think it's run,
1 and
select
2.
and run, I think, instead of start and select. And then 1 and 2, where A and B would be, or B and A. So you press the 1 button to rotate your bullets counterclockwise, and A to fire, or 2 to fire your guns. But then if you want to rotate counterclockwise, you have to push the select button. So you can't, move with your D-pad and press the select button at the same time. So you pretty much are kind of forced to continually rotate your guns clockwise while you're playing, so it makes it really difficult if you've got an enemy at 2 o'clock, and then suddenly you've got an enemy coming up at 7 o'clock, and you've got to get your gun all the way rotated around.
Kind of like Hellfire in a way, because in Hellfire for Genesis, you've got to change on the fly your guns, and if you need one that's 3 clicks away, you've got to keep pressing the button to change it out super fast.
But at least you can keep firing while that happens.
True.
And you do get weapons that fire in all 4 directions at once in Hellfire.
Yeah.
Whereas this, it's 2 guns, but they only fire in one direction. You do get different, I think there's 4 different kinds of weapons, and lots of enemies leave power-ups for you. And you can only power up the weapons that you're not currently using. So if you want to power up your lightning weapon, you've got to use a different weapon and then get a lot of the L's, and then finally you can switch over to it when it's powered up enough. There's not a lot of feedback on the screen to tell you how powered up each weapon is. You just kind of have to keep switching to it and checking. So that's a lot of design flaws in this game, for sure. The game on the whole is fun. The soundtrack is really, really good. I was having a lot of trouble figuring out which song to pick from it. This is the one I settled on, and I'm happy with that pick.
Yeah.
But definitely go check out the full soundtrack when you get a chance, because it's worth it. And it's worth checking out the game, too. For those who like a challenge, this is definitely a good one. It's not one of those games where, it's poorly programmed, and if you die, it's because of the game. It's your own fault if you die. Fault. It's something you can definitely get good at with a little bit of memorization. So
cool.
I don't think we've featured either Hiroshi Nishikawa or Makiko Ito on the show before. Nishikawa started off in 1990 with Makai Prince Dorabochan, and that was developed by Red Company for Nexat Soft. Burning Angels came after that, and then Barunba also in 1990. He composed some of the music for Nintendo World Cup in 1991. And after that, Dead Moon, Acrobat Mission, Bases Loaded 96 doubleheader. His last game was Rainbow Island Putty's Party, which came out in 2000, and that was on the Wonder Swan. So, we didn't hear much from him after that. Makiko Ito's first game was Robo Warrior in 1988, and he also worked on Makai Prince Dorabochan in 1990, as well as Burning Angels. So I guess these two kind of worked in tandem for the year of 1990, at least. And then Barunba in 1990, that was his last game. He was the music director on the game. So I'm assuming that Nishimura probably did most of the composing, and then Ito probably helped out with final touches on soundtracks and stuff, being the sound director. So
cool.
There we go.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to your next track, because I love this game and I love this
Agreed.
song.
Yeah, it's great. It's kind of came out of nowhere for me. This is Miss Pac-Man's Maze Madness on the Dreamcast. This came out in 2000. This track, I believe, is exclusive to this version, is called CleoPactra.
I get it.
See what they did there?
Yeah.
John Holland's the composer. We'll talk about him a little bit when we come back from the break. Hooray! All right, Miss Pac-Man's Maze Madness. That's a tongue twister. Dreamcast 2000. That was CleoPactra, and that was John Holland, who was the composer. This game came out of nowhere for me. I I don't remember. It might have been a conversation you were actually having with somebody else about like Lode Runner, and somehow I think Miss Pac-Man's Maze Madness came up.
It's very possible.
It is. It was a couple months ago, and I kind of kept both of those games in the back of my head as like games I wanted to try and find because I heard the soundtracks were good. Because now at this point, I don't even get games anymore if the games themselves are really good. Nowadays, I'm like, is the soundtrack good? That's the first thing I want to know.
Well,
and if the soundtrack is good, then I'll most likely pick up the game.
That's the Ed method of collecting, so you've joined my dark side, I guess.
Pretty much. Yeah, so I found out that there were differences between the N64 and the Dreamcast version, other than the full motion video being removed in the N64 version. This stage, I believe, and track are not in it at all.
This is the first level, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
I don't think...
Interesting that they would like have a different first level.
Yeah, it's either the first level's missing, or I haven't actually... I could be talking out my butt here. I don't know. But I'm pretty sure that what I read was the CleoPactra version is only available on the PlayStation and the Dreamcast versions of the game. So,
yeah, I mean, I stay away from the N64 like the plague, so I've never played that version.
I was actually gonna get the 64 version of the game, but then I was like, you know what? I just don't have enough Dreamcast games. I really wanted to beef up my collection there. So I was like, all right, I'll pick it up. And it's really fun. Like, Pac-Man, I don't know. It's a dime a dozen sort of thing.
Right, but this is like Pac-Man mixed with a puzzler.
Yeah, it's like Pac-Man, almost like an adventure game in a way.
Yeah.
Because like you're going around the map, you know, the map is fully fleshed out like 3D style, but still on like a not really isometric, but more like side view, sort of like 2D side view.
Yeah.
But the levels themselves are 3D, so you're running around, you know, typical Pac-Man style game. But yeah, it is a little bit more of a puzzler because you're trying to figure out where to go and if you can go in a certain spot or whatever. It's not really like a 3D first-person sort of thing.
No,
it's,
not at all.
But it's cool. It's really good, and the music is great, so I was happy to pick this one up.
Man, this song is so authentically 80s. Like,
yes.
It was like 1983 all over again, and I was sitting in front of MTV, you know, watching a Berlin video or something.
If you told me that Cyndi Lauper's new track was called CleoPactra, I would believe you.
Yeah.
This is very 80s, very... not even synth pop. It's like just 80s.
Yeah.
Like 80s pop. Like Madonna, Cyndi Lauper.
The bass line really reminded me of like 99 Left Balloons.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It was very like...
It's got that bouncy, happy kind of... Yeah.
And all around great. And John Holland integrates the like sitar, the Egyptian sounds into that 80s sound
with that
so well.
Yeah,
so it's like a throwback to the 80s because it's Pac-Man, but then it also incorporates the theme. So, you know, this is the work of somebody very experienced with video games. Like, he kind of was able to bring all of these kind of different elements of Pac-Man together and make a really good track out of it.
Which is interesting because John Holland has not a lot to him as far as soundtracks go. I mean...
He's just a shell of a man.
Yeah, he's mostly known for Vector Man and Vector Man 2, which he did, but his last game was Seablade in 2002, so he really hasn't done that much. He did a couple games in between those three, but that was his standout stuff other than Miss Pac-Man, so it's pretty cool. And I don't know if you knew this, but this game was supposed to be getting a sequel at some point for the GameCube.
I did not.
Yeah, but it didn't go through, I guess.
Miss Pac-Man's Maze Madness 2, even mazier.
Even madnessier.
Even madnier.
Maz madnessier. Yeah. I don't know. So, yeah, it's a cool game. It's a cool soundtrack. I recommend picking it up. It's cheap enough. You can find it for like $12.
Radical.
Yeah.
See, I'm being 80s.
Oh, I see. I see what you did there. All right, speaking of 80s, what do you got for us?
Actually, this game is not 80s. This is, for track number 4, I've got Quattro Sports, which is appropriate. This is the BMX Simulator title screen music from that selection. This came out on the NES in 1993, and this was composed by Gavin Raeburn. All right, that groovy tune was the title theme from Quattro Sports BMX Simulator, released on the NES in 1993, composed by Gavin Raeburn. I think we've only featured him maybe once or twice on the show before. Mm-hmm. I love this track. This track has been in the wings for a long time, actually, before I've actually been able to share it. And I was like, I gotta slide it in for the last show, because I really need to play this one. It's just got such a great rocking sound. It has a lot of, like, demo scene kind of a feel to it.
Yeah.
And that bass, and then that drum solo, as we were kind of listening to it, I was like, oh, this is like the Mega Man 2 Get Equipped remix version. And it's got the little toms going on. What'd you think? What were your favorite parts?
I would say there's parts of it that sound like it came from definitely demo scene, but I was going to say, like, you can tell this is very westernized because it has that Commodore 64, the bleep, bloop, bleep, bloop, bleep, bloop, that they love to throw in. If you listen to stuff like the RoboCop 3
tiny little
soundtrack,
arpeggio hits here.
Yeah. So they love to throw that stuff in. But this sounds very Japanese as well. Especially with those main melodies, the lead synth when it kind of like da na na na.
You're right.
It's definitely very Japanese-ish. So I feel like it's a good mix of East and West.
I can agree with that very much. This game...
This is one of those games that you would see on the game shelf when you go to literally every game store ever.
Yeah.
And, you know, you go to your local ma and pa shop and you're just like, no, pass. It's a gold cartridge that looks all weird. I'm good. I'm done. I'm not even going to touch that.
I mean, the benefit is that it has 4 games on it. The drawback is those 4 games are only about a quarter as good as the rest of the games that are on the shelf next to it.
Right.
So,
right.
This one is just like, it's an overhead, kind of like, you know, Ivan Ironman Stewart's Off-Road kind of a deal. You're just a bunch of bikes, and you're looking directly down on a bike track, and you hold a button down to go, and you press left and right to steer, and you hope that you don't touch anything, because if you touch anything, you fall off your bike, and it's kind of like this grand gesture of destruction, and then you've got to get back on your bike again. And it's just like, it's really annoying, and not very fun, and all that stuff. So, there was a baseball game on this cart that was actually pretty good that I was playing for a while. It was very basic, but it didn't rub me the wrong way. So, I mean, if you could pick up this cart for, like, you know, $5, it might be worth just to check out. I mean, at least for the music itself, because all the music for all the games is by Gavin Raeburn.
No.
So
this is a soundtrack delivery system.
Exactly. Yes. So you may as well just grab the NSF file or go listen to it on YouTube if you don't want to hear it through the real hardware. Yeah, I mean, Gavin Raeburn, we've played him on the show before. I know that Nico, the wee guy, he's a huge fan of him. I think he's brought his music to at least a couple of our shows on guest appearances before. What was that game? The Ultimate Stuntman? Ultimate Stuntman. I think he composed the music for that as well.
Yep.
He is a Codemasters guy. I mean, he started at Codemasters way back in 1990, and he was there until, if I remember correctly,
2010.
2010, and then he moved over to Playground Games, which he owns. So he was basically working on the Grid and a bunch of Codemasters racing games. He was a designer on the Toka Race Car Driver series, Pro Race Driver, the Dirt, Grid, Dirt 2, Forza Horizon, Horizon 2, and Horizon 3. So basically what happened is Codemasters worked on Forza Horizon 1 and 2, and then Gavin Raeburn broke off and created his own studio called Playground Games, and basically brought Forza, I think it's pronounced Forza, along with him. So now he's the owner of the studio that's making the game that Codemasters used to produce. So that's his kind of claim to fame. He started as a composer, and now he's just this big game development company CEO bigwig. So still in the industry, still doing great stuff. Because the Forza games are awesome. They're not really my bag, but they're extremely popular and very well produced.
Yeah,
so.
A friend of mine loves them.
Yeah, my brother loves them too.
Yeah, if you're a car guy, Forza's where it's at.
Yeah.
So, cool.
So, let's move on to our next one.
Let's move on to a Famicom game, so kind of staying in the same realm. This is a really fun title to say. Hidenori Houhou. That was how...
Sounds like you're being tickled.
Yeah. That was how Brian said it on our Iku Mizutani episode.
I gotcha.
So, that's... I don't know how it sounds. So, yeah, Hidenori Houhou. Famicom, 1987 was the year of release. This is Stage 3, and it's by Kinuyo Yamashita, Iko Mizutani, and Hidenori Maezawa.
Wow, there's an all-star lineup.
Oh, yeah. Alright, welcome back. That was Hino Tori Hohohen on the Famicom. That was 1987 was the year of release. That was Stage 3 by Kinuyo Yamashita, Iku Mizutani, and Hidenori Maezawa.
Okay, so before you go any further,
yes,
I'm going to count to 3.
Yep.
And on 3, we're both going to say which composer of the 3 we think composed this song.
Oh,
Are you
well,
ready?
So I do not want to do that, and I'll explain why. Because I don't think that this is a one and done. I think there were multiple composers involved in this, and I can explain why.
I exactly know why, but I will let you say it because I'll probably agree with you.
I think the beginning is by Hidenori Maezawa, and I think that the middle, the main melody, is by Iku Mizutani, and I think the kind of like tailor end, that the is by Kinuyo Yamashita.
Really?
Yep.
Because the middle part is so Castlevania 2, it's not even funny. Da 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 da, and even the bass line is Castlevania.
Yeah,
it's very Castlevania.
It is.
Unless, Yamashita was like, "Hey Mizutani, do you want to do some Castlevania for me?"
You know what it is? It's the bass line. That do.
That's Castlevania 2.
But it's also Iku Mizutani. I mean, Iku Mizutani's like sound is that melody.
So
right
maybe
there.
this game is the nexus upon which both of those composers got their influence.
Yeah.
And they just influenced each other and went in different ways, different directions from an original point, like VGM podcasters.
Possibly. I'm willing to bet that it's just because, I mean, when we spoke with Iku Mizutani on the when we interviewed him, he said that tracks would get passed off left and right.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like
no, that's
Maezawa wrote the beginning, and then he passed it off to Mizutani, who wrote the main lead, harmony and everything. And then maybe Yamashita came in, wrote the bass line. So
what's really funny, super funny to me, is that my opinion was that Yamashita wrote the first 2 parts and not the last part.
Okay.
And yours is completely different because you feel that she wrote the last part but not the first 2 parts. So that's really funny. I don't know. I would throw this out to the Facebook group. I'd love to hear what people thought about this song. We should just link the song in the comments and have people listen to it and see which parts, or if one composer, in general, just wrote it. I hear a lot of Yamashita on this one, though. But
definitely,
people might hear different stuff.
Yeah, I just wanted an excuse to play a Mizutani track.
No, it's a great track, regardless of who composed it. Like I said, I think there are some influences of all 3 of them in there, which is great because I love all 3 composers. So I have no problem. Whoever wrote this song,
agreed.
It's a worthwhile listen.
This is based on a manga and anime called Phoenix. So I'm not sure where. I could have sworn that Brian said that the title was like Hot Rock of Love, but I don't think that.
No, that's a different one.
That is a different one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to go back and re-listen to the episode, but. Yeah, this is based on Phoenix, which is an anime and a manga and all that good stuff. So I've never seen it. I know nothing about it. I've played the game. There were 2 games that came out for this series. Initially, there was an MSX2 game, which came out in 87, which I believe is a little bit different. And then this game came out, and this is more like a standard action platform type of game, kind of like a Castlevania style. There's 16 levels. The whole point is to collect these sculpture fragments and restore this phoenix sculpture back to its original position. So you beat a boss, and then you get one of these fragments. So
neat.
Yeah, it's cool. Pretty simple.
Yeah, I want to hear the rest of the soundtrack because
this
is a really good track. Those bass lines are so groovy.
Yeah,
right
absolutely.
up my alley.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So definitely recommended.
Excellent.
So we're going all the way from 87 to 2017. What do you got for us?
Yeah, this is a track from Snipperclips Plus. I feel like we didn't really get enough Switch tracks on this podcast, so I wanted to add a couple in there at least. So this is Silly Science B, and this is composed by Calum Bowen. Alright, that was Silly Science B from Snipperclips Plus, which came out on the Switch last year in 2017, composed by Calum Bowen. I really love this soundtrack, and I really love this track in particular. I was super surprised to learn that it wasn't composed by, like, Nintendo's in-house Japanese composers.
Yeah.
I felt like it had such a playful experimental Nintendo quality to it at first, the legacy of Hip Tanaka and Kazumi Totaka and all those guys that are just make these weird kind of very
experimental
synths that sound like cats meowing and all this stuff. So, Calum Bowen, I think, really took a lot of inspiration from that stuff. The beginning sounds a lot to me like Mario Paint and a lot of the stuff that came out around that time, Dr. Mario. So, and then as it goes on, there's 3 different movements, and it just gets so jazzy and groovy, but still maintains that kind of playfulness throughout it. It was a lot of fun to listen to.
Yeah, it's very Mario Paint-ish. It's also very similar to like some of the WarioWare games that were coming out, especially what we played on the Wario episode, the WarioWare game for the Wii U. This reminded me a lot of that. So it's got that funky vibe. It's not quite all the way funk, but it's not quite like ambient. It's got that silly, fun vibe too with it. Like it's a very fresh sound, which you don't really get out of many other developers other than Nintendo. So it's nice to see some non-Japanese composers kind of, bring that in, working for Nintendo, but not necessarily, part of their usual, like, Koji Kondo, Hip Tanaka, like that staff.
Right, exactly. So hopefully this guy will write some more music for Nintendo and continue this kind of tradition. I think Nintendo found somebody that can really kind of help bring that sound back again. And Snipperclips is one of those games that really kind of benefits from that sound because it's all about creativity and problem solving and cooperation and just like a lot of those earlier Nintendo experimental games where you're these two little characters and they're like almost like chevrons, I guess. The best way to explain it is they have like a flat top and then it comes down like it would be a rectangle, but then it rounds out at the bottom. And they've got legs on the bottom and little arms, and one's kind of male looking and one's kind of female looking. And you can move them independently if you're playing one player with each analog stick. Or if you're playing two players, one controls one and one controls the other. And when they overlap each other, so like one is like a purple and one's a blue, when they overlap each other, you kind of see both shapes, the colors kind of combine. And when one person hits the snip button, it cuts out the other person's shape into whatever shape it was. So it'll just like it's a pair of scissors, which is why it's called Snipperclips. And the way you solve the puzzles and get from room to room is by changing each other's shapes and either finding out how to pop a balloon or cutting yourself into a hook so that you can bring a balloon down from the ceiling or making yourself small enough to get through a hole or any number of crazy things. I've only played the demo myself because Nintendo did release a demo for this game, which is cool. You don't see that much anymore.
Yeah.
But Logan and I have played this game, at least the demo version, quite a bit, and it's pretty fun. I'm just waiting for it to probably come down in price a little bit before I pull the trigger on it. But it's very cool. The soundtrack is really neat. The graphics are so much fun. It feels like you're playing like an Adult Swim cartoon. The way all the characters like emote and the way the backgrounds kind of like grow and shrink as you walk in front of them. So extremely well done game. Definitely worthwhile playing, especially on the Switch. You can just kind of take it anywhere you go and just take the controllers off and play at a gas station for all I care. Calum Bones worked on some indie games, but nothing really, AAA or big. Polka Pets, the Lovely Planet original soundtrack he's composed. Marble Time, Super Ubi Land. These are all soundtracks that you can find on his Bandcamp at calumbowen.bandcamp.com. I haven't checked them out yet, but if they're anything like the playfulness that Snipperclips has, they're probably worth checking out. All of the covers to these albums all have a very like Katamari style playfulness to them, so hopefully they're worth listening to. I'm going to check them out myself at some point.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to move into a Super Nintendo track. This is one that I found a lot of these very recently, and this is one that I found and was like, that's interesting. I didn't think that this game would sound like this, but okay. Foreman for Real on the Super NES. This is a 1995 release. This is Tournament, and it's by Chris Jojo, Paul Tong, and Sudi Ravel. All right, you have returned, and that was Foreman for Real on the Super NES. That was the 1995 release, and that was Tournament by Chris Jojo, Paul Tong, and Sudi Ravel. I got a lot to say about this game. So, musically, first off, it's really good. It's got that Super Nintendo guitar-driven, like, Killer Instinct sound that I really love, and I just dig this track. I mean, it's very similar to a lot of the stuff on, like, Separation Anxiety, Spider-Man Maximum Carnage, and there's a reason for that. It's because Chris Jojo worked on both of those titles, as well as, like, Tin Star, Cutthroat Island, those kinds of games for the Super NES. So we'll talk a little bit more about Chris Jojo in just a second, but just to kind of give you an idea of what it sounds like, you know, other than what you heard, it's kind of what the rest of the soundtrack sounds like. There's not a ton of music, but it's all very, like, guitar-heavy, guitar-driven with that MIDI guitar, so.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels to me like they're using the same sound driver and sound instrument set that Tim Fallon used on most of his SNES games, especially like Rock and Roll Racing. So yeah, it's interesting to hear that those same instruments being used by somebody else, because I'm so used to hearing Fallon's work on those.
Right.
And even those guitar solos sound like they were very influenced by Fallon. But yeah, the rest of it's just much heavier than he ever really did at that point. And those drums are just super, super heavy. I love the percussion in this.
The sampled drums with the snare, the da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, it's got that very like early 90s kind of almost grungy snare sound to it. So yeah, good track. I've known about this one for a while, and I've always meant to play something from this, and I'm glad that you finally did. So the rest of this soundtrack sounds very similar, maybe a little more dynamic. This one's probably one of the most faster-paced songs, which I kind of expect from you anyway, so knowing your taste. But yeah, the rest of the soundtrack is definitely worth checking out. So I've never actually played the game before, though, have you?
It's creepy. Like,
creepy?
So it's a boxing game, so you're playing as, you know, it's more like the ring is, you're in the ring, but like it's not like top down, almost like Punch Out. It's more like you're in the ring and you're staring out, you know, into the distance, so you can see the crowd, mostly made up of like businessmen, like older businessmen, and like like random guys that look, you know, have like no faces.
Interesting.
You know, but what's really creepy is, so you can't see your player's face, the person who you're picking, which makes sense, very similar to like Punch Out.
Right.
But the movement of the characters is very realistic for Super Nintendo. It's not quite like ACM graphics like on Donkey Kong Country, but like I feel like that's what they were trying to go for. Okay. And it makes sense since it came out a year.
95, yeah, 95, that's definitely where
right
that
around
was
that
the big
time.
thing, yeah.
Yeah, 3D was like super in, so they're really trying to go for like digitized sprite style. But what's creepy is the dead stare that you get with the other person that you're fighting. So even when you're punching them or anything, like when you're punching them, they just kind of move their head or, you know, like lunge back a little bit, but like they still have that dead expression on their face. It's like not quite Uncanny Valley, but like it's almost there. It's super creepy.
You kind of make your own story, like you're fighting like automatons in like some sort of weird virtual world.
Yeah.
And that's why it's called Foreman for Real, because you're trying to get back to the real world.
Right. Yeah, you're playing as George Foreman,
where everybody's not digitized anymore.
Trying to destroy all the robots. No, it's just, oh man, it's just creepy looking. So I recommend checking it out visually, like on YouTube. Like, don't play this game; it's not great. So, but the soundtrack's cool. So again, soundtrack delivery system in total, pretty much. For the reason why you're probably hearing Tim Fallon is because Chris Jojo currently he works for Codemasters, but he worked for Software Creations before leaving for Acclaim. So during his time when he was with Software Creations, he worked on like Separation Anxiety, Maximum Carnage, Tin Star, Cutthroat Island, etc. He worked on like every version of the game with Cutthroat Island. Eventually he left and went on to Acclaim, and then later on he worked on games like Grid, and his last game was F1 2010, primarily just doing guitar work.
Oh, so he worked with Gavin Raeburn for a little bit. That's cool.
So Software Creations worked pretty heavily with Tim Fallon at the time, so that's probably why, most likely the Fallon Brothers drivers. Yep. So, and then for the other composers that are labeled on this, Paul Tong, he did like lots of Amiga ports of games like TMNT, Smash TV, stuff like that. He also worked on Separation Anxiety, Maximum Carnage, and the Super NES version of Cutthroat Island. And then he did some Rugrats games on the N64 before he flew away like a ninja.
Poof.
And Studi Ravel he was part of a group, like a group in the 90s called Together. He mostly works on like acid house music. He's done some of the Lego Harry Potter games, some of the Lord of the Rings games. Worked a lot with WB.
Yeah, I think the last Free Picks episode, I played a track from Lego City Undercover.
Yep.
He was the composer on that song, too.
So, yeah, he's mostly a Warner Brothers guy at this point.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, what do you got for us?
Next up is another Switch game. This one is Super Bomberman R. The track is called Online Battle 2, and it's by Seima Iwahashi and Daisuke Kikuta. And that was Online Battle 2 from Super Bomberman R, released on the Switch in 2017, composed by Seima Iwahashi and Daisuke Kikuta. I got kind of a Jake Kaufman vibe out of this one.
Definitely,
like
yeah.
a Mighty Switch Force kind of a feel.
Very bouncy, dancey.
Yeah.
Love it, yeah.
Very, very well produced. I love the way they combined like the guitar with the kind of techno lead synths. It's got so much energy. This song is ridiculously over-caffeinated. And it has little hints of the Bomberman tune in there as well. So it kind of, again, brings that whole kind of feel together of classic Bomberman with a new, updated kind of musicality to it. You know, I don't have any experience with this game, unfortunately. I haven't bought it yet. I like to buy games after they go on sale, so this one I think is still riding around $60 because it's a brand new game. But it looks great. It's one of those games where I wish I had more friends with Switches so that we could all just kind of get together and play. But it feels like if this were like playing during an online tournament, it would just be nonstop madness.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the Bomberman games are always a lot of fun, so I'm sure that this is really good. I've heard great things about it. It's coming to PS4, it's coming to Xbox, and I think PC as well, and each system is getting its own unique character.
Oh, cool.
Which is pretty cool. Like, I think Master Chief for Xbox, and I think Kratos
probably
for PlayStation.
He's always the bonus character.
Yeah, but nothing for Switch. I don't believe there were any bonus characters. There was some cool stuff that they added into the Switch version that'll be in the others as well. But you know, it's kind of like Konami returning to their roots in a way, because it's kind of like the YY World games or like the YY series, Konami Crazy Racers, where you've got a bunch of different Konami characters from all different types of games. So you've got like the Dracula from Castlevania, you've got the ninja from Metal Gear, you've got I don't think any Hudson Soft characters made it in like Adventure Island or anything like that.
Rodney from Skate or Die.
Rodney from Skate or Die. Yeah.
Konami's mascot, you know.
Yeah. The Ultra Games logo.
There you go.
That'd be
Perfect.
awesome.
Pixely Splinter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't think that Nintendo Switch players really need an exclusive character, because I think Nintendo Switch players are just happy there's a great game out for the Switch that's not a first-party title. True. And Bomberman's always been kind of like a Nintendo... I'm not saying he hasn't been on other systems, but he's always been very close to Nintendo owners. You know, all the Super Bomberman games on the SNES.
Right.
Obviously, it's been out on the TurboGrafx 16 and stuff, but it's been kind of a Nintendo style brand, you know, kind of cutesy, but with a lot of skill involved at the same time. So, Bomberman's always felt very at home on Nintendo consoles to me. And this soundtrack is really cool. It's, like I said, very, very high energy, and it's been done by a couple of new-ish composers. So Sayama Iwahashi started off in 2013 on Chaos Rings 2, and then did percussion for Final Fantasy Brave Exvius in 2016, and then Super Bomberman R the year after that. He's actually done a lot of anime and stuff, so if you go to his VGMDB page, there's a ton of anime soundtracks with names too long for me to pronounce, but stuff like TV anime Kimigami no Asobi, You Gotta Love Me, Milky a Go-Go, Detective Opera Milky Holmes TD, Insert Song Album, Treasure Disc, you know how the Japanese do.
Right.
And he's pretty young, he was born in 89, so, he's got a ton of stuff in the anime sector for how old he is, so he's evidently a pretty gifted dude in that respect. Daisuke Kikuta he's a Japanese actor and a composer, so he's been on lots of Japanese dramas, movies, and television. He does that, plus he also composes on the side, I guess kind of like Gak, an actor plus a musician. So I started off in 2007 on Wild Arms XF, Last Rebellion in 2010, again Chaos Rings 2 in 2013, so he worked alongside the other composer, and Bomberman R is his last credited music. I think when there is vocals in a song, I think it tends to do the vocal tracks, and then they release it as a single in Japan, so he probably does that kind of stuff. He's got a very pretty face, so he's probably the face of the soundtrack when a new game comes out that he's worked on.
Right.
So, Bomberman R, I want to play it. When I do get it, I'll let you guys know so we can play some online Bomberman and blow each other to smithereens. So what you got next for us?
I have, going in a similar but opposite direction.
Wait, what?
This is another mobile-ish game, in the sense that the Switch is more of a mobile system, sort of. This is on the 3DS. It's Radiant Historia Perfect Chronology. This came out recently in 2018. This track is called Edge of Green, and it's by the always amazing Yoko Shimomura. that is Radiant Historia Perfect Chronology. That was the 3DS game that came out this year in 2018. That track was Edge of Green, and it was by Yoko Shimomura. I really fell in love with this game. This is one of my favorite current, modern RPGs. I'm not done with it yet, but I am really excited to finish it. I'm probably 12 hours in or so. Gameplay-wise, it works off of sort of a grid, kind of. All of the enemies are lined up on the left for the most part, and it's almost like a connect the dots kind of thing. And they can move forward to attack you on the right-hand side. They can move down. They can, you can push them together. So one of the tactics that you do in the game as far as attacking the enemies go, you can push the enemy into another enemy, and then they're together, and then you can chain your attacks so that your other characters in your party will attack not only one of the characters, but both of the characters if you push them all together.
Okay.
So that way you're hurting both characters at the same time.
It's like Combat Katamari.
Kind
Making
of.
big enemy balls?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, you're not really rolling them together.
No,
it's more like the two sprites are next to each other at that point, one on top of the other. So when you're attacking one, you're also attacking the other.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's kind of complex to explain, but it's very easy to learn when you're playing the game.
Cool.
The story is basically you're playing as a character named Stock. He's an agent. There's two kingdoms that are kind of fighting, Alistel and Granorg, and he's part of Alistel. And so essentially Stock is joined by two other characters, Rainy and Marco, and they were victims of this huge brawl-out war, and they are kind of on edge ever since then. There's other characters. It's not worth getting into right now. Just trust me, play the game. What's the thing that I really wanted to describe about the gameplay mechanic, though, is the timeline aspect. And, I mean, it is a turn-based JRPG. You do move around on the regular map, and then you've got a very basic map that you can move from place to place instead of you wandering around this huge giant map and then having random enemies. The map is just more, hey, I want to go here. Okay, I'm there now. And then you get these other maps internally that you can run around in. But what's really cool is that there's this White Chronicle book. And essentially what happens is there's these two spirits that are kind of watching over this White Chronicle book. The whole point of the game is you have to figure out which timeline to go through to experience pretty much all aspects of the story. So the game
kind of like Chrono Trigger a little bit?
A little bit, but you can fail. And if you do fail, then you get to go back and basically the game's oh, okay, so you failed here, so now you need to go back.
Okay.
So there's not really a risk of doing anything permanent damage,
Gotcha.
or at least not anything.
So it's still a linear game with different timelines.
Right. So it is very linear in that aspect. But what's cool is you get to explore all the different storylines, meet new characters, get different side quests and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
So it's really cool. It kind of threw me for a loop because I didn't really know what to expect. I liked the character design first, and that's usually how it goes with RPGs for me because I usually like the character designs.
Right.
And then from there I'm like, all right, now what's the gameplay like? And when I kind of read up on this and found out that it's a little bit like Chrono Trigger, I was like, I'm in. So
cool.
Then when I heard the soundtrack, I was like, I'm super in. So Yoko Shimomura, no introduction needed. She's mostly worked on Kingdom Hearts as well as some of the other Square sort of series. I believe she worked on Xenoblade.
Yep.
So she's pretty famous. Legend of Mana, all those.
That little Street Fighter 2 game.
Yeah, whatever, Street Fighter 2. But yeah, she's a fantastic composer. She's quickly becoming one of my favorites. This soundtrack is mostly redone, but it's most of the tracks from the original. This game is a remake of Radiant Historia, which came out on the DS.
Okay.
So it's pretty much remade graphically, a little bit more added to the story. There's DLC you can purchase too for additional storylines, different chapters and stuff, which is really cool.
Cool.
So yeah, really cool game, great soundtrack. Musically, I thought that this track was really cool. It was kind of like a mishmash of military-esque stuff for those drums, those pitter-patter drums. And then you kind of throw in the violin, which is really awesome, really great melody to that, and then it kind of goes into this sweeping melody that kind of rolls the track, closer to the end, where it's got like organs and stuff, kind of like a very like Castlevania-esque sound right before it loops. So I don't know. I know classical's not really your bag, but would you, I kind of felt like the drums would kind of maybe possibly get you in.
The song definitely had instruments that all played notes together.
Okay.
Yeah. And it had a feeling of like anime intro.
Okay.
I think.
I believe it's a battle
of characters, doing things and waving things around. And,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, it didn't grab me so much. I personally, and I don't want to get flamed or, like things thrown at me, I'm not a huge Yoko Shimomura fan simply because she just doesn't compose in a style that I really enjoy. I think she's a great composer in her own right. I don't know of anybody who, thinks she's a crap composer.
Right.
But a lot of her soundtracks are they're for games I don't really think too much about, and they have a style of music that I don't care for too much.
Don't worry, I'll get the pitchforks ready.
Yeah, please.
Guys, pitchforks!
Thank you. Just don't stab me in the eye or the ears.
Just the throat and the nuts.
I don't have to talk. I just want to listen to video game music. But yeah, so I do like her work on the Mario and Luigi series. It's a little more playful, a little more Nintendo-like, and there are some throwbacks to the Mario melodies and such. But I don't really see myself ever purchasing a Radiant Historia game or anything like that. So, but the next game is very, very different. This one is
a lot of newer games this episode.
Yeah, I'm going very, very new. Lots of 2017 games. So this is a track called Ghetto Libretto, and this is from Streets of Rogue. And it's out on the PC now in early access, and it's composed by Craig Barnes. Oh man, love this soundtrack and this game. That was Ghetto Libretto, composed by Craig Barnes, off of the Streets of Rogue OST, released on Steam in Early Access in 2017. Now, before we get any further, I want to circle back a little bit to something I said last break. And I want to clarify, as far as VG Embassy goes, like if you came to me and was like, hey, I want to do a Yoko Shimomura episode, I would not say no. Because the whole concept behind that show is for you to be sharing what your passion is. And it's not, and I wouldn't be like, this is crap the entire way through the show. Like, it would be an opportunity to learn and appreciate about what you're sharing.
Don't test me.
Hey, if you wanted to do it, I would totally do it.
I'm thinking of the absolute worst tracks that would be so unlike Ed that I could pick and be like, what do you think of this? It's just like 10 minutes of guitar squeals.
You could do like a Drive Ed Crazy episode.
That
would be so awesome. And then, being an embassy, we would then be at war with each other or something like that afterwards. But yeah, so that's going to be a part of the show. I'm going to be doing shows that I'm not comfortable with, and I want to get myself out of my comfort zone sometimes and do shows that are completely different than what I would normally do by myself. That's why I'm having so many guests on. Anyways, so back onto Streets of Rogue, and yes, it of course does sound like Streets of Rage. Even the logo for the game kind of looks like Streets of Rage.
Yeah, I figured.
But the game is nothing like it. I think it's just kind of using that as a play on words. The game it's a roguelite, not really a roguelike. If you imagine like lots of Zelda-style villages, like from Link to the Past, but in like modern day to a little bit like further future, kind of very rundown city kind of atmosphere.
So Detroit,
basically. But it's this huge tower, like the Judge Dredd game with Carl Urban, or movie with Carl Urban.
Dredd,
yeah, Dredd. The world is kind of built like that. You start off at the bottom as part of this resistance group, and you're trying to make your way to the top of this tower. And every level is its own kind of independent city. And depending on what kind of character you pick, you can select from a whole bunch of different characters with different skill sets. The way you go through these levels is very different. Sometimes you have to break a guy out of a prison on one side of the map and get him to the end of the level to get him to the next room. Sometimes you need to go in and kill a boss enemy. Sometimes you need to unlock several doors and grab a weapon and leave. Sometimes you need to poison. You can get poisoned and put it in vents and like kill a whole room full of enemies without making any sounds. So there's a lot of different, very cool things you can do. It's set up like a twin stick shooter kind of a deal. So you use a regular PlayStation controller with your analog sticks. It's a whole lot of fun. The soundtrack, as you can tell, is very, very good. Lots of energetic techno music, kind of like a jungle beat, and really keeps you playing through it. And it's also one of those games where it's one and done. If you die, then you go back to the beginning, you re-roll your character, and you make your way through it again. But you can earn perks along the way that are permanent perks, so that you can start with a character that has, no matter who you start with on the next level, you have more hit points, or you have more stealth points, or whatever it is. Yeah. So, it's a lot of fun. It's not completely developed yet, but it's definitely 100% playable. Mm-hmm. And they're just still working on, tweaking bugs and stuff. But I saw the title and it looked like Streets of Rage, so their marketing department did their thing. And I was like, oh, maybe this has a Streets of Rage similar kind of soundtrack. So I checked it out, and it's not really a Streets of Rage style soundtrack, but it's still really good regardless. And I was like, well, at least if the game sucks, I'll at least have some cool music to listen to. True. So, but I got both, so I was very happy with it. Craig Barnes is a composer. He's a freelance sound designer and composer for video games and more. He's done stuff like Miracle Merchant, which came out on iOS and Android, Enyo for iOS and Android, Silicon Zeros, he was the composer and sound designer that came out on the PC, Meteor Fall for mobile, and Neon Krieger Yamato is his next game coming out on PC, in which you can master a deadly dance of kaleidoscopic combos to beat back hordes of juiced-up cyber soldiers in a neo-dystopian future, otherwise known as My Wet Dream. So I'll keep my eye on that one.
Sexy.
But he does sound design, he does composition, just a very energetic techno dance style, which is right up my alley. So he's got good stuff. He also worked on A Hat in Time, which is cool. He was a dialogue editor and implementer, and a bunch of other, like Nano Golf. He was the composer and sound designer for that too. That came out on iOS, and that was a pretty popular game. So, and then Party Hard. Have you ever heard of Party Hard?
Yes.
It's this game where you're like this loner guy, and your mission is to kill everybody at this raging party without anybody else seeing you, and that's pretty fun. So he did the OST remixes for that was released as a soundtrack alongside the game. So
Cool.
pretty good stuff. Check this one out if you want. If you are a PC gamer and you have Steam, it's not very expensive. There's a lot of great gameplay. If you like roguelites, if you like twin stick shooters and kind of like puzzlers and almost like an RPG element, check it out. I think you'll like it. I'm having fun with it.
Yeah, and I like the track as well.
Yeah, I kind of talked a whole lot on that, didn't I? There's a lot to say.
Yeah. No, I hear you. No, the track was great. It was very energetic, very bouncy, but it has that like dark, evil, like synthy bass, that dun 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 dun. I was digging that part. I think more towards the end of the track, I was kind of losing me, but for the most part, it had me hook, line, and sinker.
The levels are long. There's one track per level. So every time you go up another level, the music changes, which is very cool. It's a huge soundtrack, and he's adding more onto it as the game goes through development.
Right.
So, but even if the game doesn't sound like your cup of tea, but you really like this track, you can just buy the soundtrack separately on his Bandcamp. So either way, check it out. So, we're going for a real classic game next.
We're moving from one rogue to the next.
Ah, yes.
That was not planned, actually. X-Men versus Street Fighter. This is the arcade, Saturn, PlayStation 1, and Windows game. This is Theme of Rogue, and it's by Yuki Iwai and Yuko Takehara.
And this is your last track.
This is my last track.
Ever.
This is my fight song.
Yes.
Yes. Alright, welcome back. That was X-Men vs. Street Fighter on the arcade, Saturn, PS1, and Windows. That was Theme of Rogue, and it's by Yuki Iwai and Yuko Takehara. There's some really great X-Men fighting games out there, and one of which is X-Men vs. Street Fighter, which I have on the Saturn. And I really dig this track. I've always really dug this track. I've had, for a very long time, 2 albums downloaded that's just like CPS1 and CPS2 stuff. And it's all really, for the most part, pretty good. There's some clunkers in there, but this track really stands out to me. I love the horn, the horns. I don't even know.
It's like a trumpet.
Trumpet, I guess you could say.
I would call it a trumpet.
Yeah, I guess it's a trumpet.
Well, there's a saxophone and a trumpet. I think there's 2 different kind of parts.
I would say that's a saxophone. That's
a saxophone.
Yeah. But that main melody is a guitar. That intro
that Capcom
melody.
Guitar.
Dat Capcom guitar. So I just love the whole track from start to finish, and but I love the jazz feel to this track too. You know, you get those pianos that kind of come in, the little twinkly
a lot of different
pianos.
phrasing, like it changes up its sound like 3 or 4 times right at the beginning.
Yeah, it's very well done, very well crafted, and it's just a great track. It's also a little bit of a sad track too, and I didn't really realize it at the time, but you know, for me to pick it as my last track, I kind of feel like it's a good way to go out. So Yuki Iwai, no stranger to the podcast. Mega Man X2, Mega Man X, Final Fight 2, Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Project Justice in 2000, R-Type Command, just like tons and tons of Capcom stuff. And then Yuko Takehara started with Mighty Final Fight in 1993, also worked on Mega Man X, Mega Man 7, Disney's Aladdin, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter. His last game was Mega Man 10 in 2010. So just all around a Capcom dude.
Yeah, both of these composers are not lifelong, but very monogamous with Capcom for a very long time.
Yes. Good stuff. Good game. I mean, I used to play this game pretty often, but I never really got that into it. It wasn't until like Marvel vs. Capcom where I really started like loving the franchise, but it's a cool game just to pop in and play a couple rounds in now and then, and it has its own specific dynamic and feel. And
this kind of started off the whole Versus series of games, kind of culminating in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite or Unlimited.
Yeah,
in Unlimited, Finite, whatever it's called.
Infinite.
Shows you how much I play it, right?
Yeah. All right, so last track of the podcast. What do you got?
Last track, we're going out with a bang. I mentioned this last episode as my favorite shmup soundtrack of all time. This is Super R-Type on the SNES, composed by one of my favorite Japanese composers, Takushi Hayamura. This one is A Submerging Titan. Let's take a listen. A Submerging Titan from Super R-Type on the SNES, composed by Takushi Hayamura. Talk about jazzy and all that stuff we were just talking about on the theme of Rogue. This kind of, you could kind of describe it with the same words, but it sounds very, very different.
It's just more funky.
Yeah, exactly, and much like grittier texture as far as all the instruments go. There's a little bit of electronic guitar in there.
A little spazzy, too. I like those little, like...
Yeah,
like,
little guitar riffs.
Yeah.
It's really cool, and especially as the bass, it's kind of doing its thing in the background. A lot of, like, orchestra hits. This soundtrack is, I don't know, for being, like, very close to either a launch title for the SNES or very close. Like, it came out within, like, a month of the SNES's release.
Yeah.
The soundtrack blew me away, and it's funny because I think I got real spoiled with the launch titles for the SNES because so many of them had such amazing music. And even though lots of great soundtracks were to come, I don't think anything really matched the quality and the quantity. Like every single game that came out had such amazing soundtracks.
Yeah.
This, Gradius 3, Pilot Wings,
Super Mario World,
F-Zero, Hyperzone. Fantastic music, and very unique music. You didn't really hear anything else like Super R-Type throughout the rest of the SNES. Even R-Type 3 didn't have a soundtrack like this.
No.
You know, maybe I guess the closest you can come to this was Undercover Cops, also by Takushi Hayamura.
True, yeah.
But that never came out in the US, so I was never privy to it,
right.
You know, when I was a kid. So, anyways, like I said, I really enjoy this soundtrack. It's one of those games that I recorded all the music to tape when I was a kid and would listen to on my Walkman on family trips. And it's just been kind of a part of my life ever since. It was one of the games I got for Christmas after I bought the SNES on launch day. So I don't remember a time with the Super Nintendo where I didn't have this game. So
I think I rented this once.
yeah, it's tough. I mean, I hadn't played the game before, so I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. I knew that I really liked shmups on the NES, and that shmups were a whole lot better on the SNES, so I just kind of, I think, put it down on my Christmas list without ever having played it. If I had rented it and saw how difficult it was, I might not have put it on my list, but I'm glad that I did, because it gave me the time to own it for all those years and kind of get good at it.
R-Type was always a much more punishing game, in my opinion, than
memorization
Gradius.
was key for R-Type games.
Yeah, I always preferred Gradius for that reason. That, and I'm just a bigger fan of Konami than I am Irem.
Yeah.
So, not that it's a bad game, it's a great game, it's just, I don't know, I think Gradius suits more my style more, and I really like the graphics and the lasers, and just everything felt so big and booming. Whereas R-Type, I was initially impressed by it, especially that first boss. But then, like, because I couldn't get further in the game, I just kind of, it fizzled for me.
Yeah.
So I never really got into the rest of the series. I think maybe I played R-Type Command on PS2, but otherwise wasn't really a fan.
Yeah.
But no doubt, without a doubt, music's great.
I was never on one side of the fence or the other, because I got Gradius 3 and R-Type on the same day. I think we got them both for Christmas. So, I played both a lot, obviously, because they were just part of my collection. And I don't know, I just love them both. I love both their soundtracks. They're very, very different, so I don't see them as even like both shmups. Like, one's just more action and one's more memorization. R-Type almost feels like a puzzle sometimes, because you've really got to figure out where to go, which weapon to have. Whereas Gradius 3 is more of like a twitchy kind of, do I have the skill to dodge all this stuff? That might not always be coming at me the same way that it did last time kind of a game. So both had their merits for sure. But yeah, I mean, I felt like this was a cool track to go out with for my last PixelTunes track. It's just kind of embodies everything I love about music. It's chippy, it's funky, it's got a little like an industrial groove to it, it's got great bass, and it's got lots of nostalgia, so I felt it kind of fit.
Yeah.
Ticked all those check boxes on my good VGM
Checked
list.
all those tick boxes.
Ticked all the check boxes.
Yeah.
Checked all the tick boxes.
Yeah, did all of it.
Ticked all the tick boxes. Got bit by a tick.
Gross.
So man, that's it.
Yeah, man.
That's it for PixelTunes VGM. Well, aside from our ending track, which we'll get to after all the end of the show business.
So what was your favorite track of the podcast?
Oof. Of the podcast?
Yeah. Of this of this episode.
I was like, holy crap, you're gonna make me think about over 1,000 songs.
No. No, what was your favorite one of
the show?
Yeah.
Let's see. Good gravy. It feels lame to kind of say it, but Submerging Titan.
Yeah.
Super R-Type, just for all the reasons I just described. That's the reason I put it last in the show.
I did really like Streets of Rogue, but I think I'm gonna go with the Looney Tunes track.
That was a great track too.
Seriously, one of the reasons is because it got stuck in my head and I couldn't get it out. And it's a good song if that's the case.
Correct.
So that is going to be my pick, is Looney Tunes Carrot Crazy or Operation Carrot Patch. So
extremely catchy.
Good stuff. But I also really liked Radiant Historia as well. So
Yeah, that was definitely a song.
Yeah, that was definitely a song. So, list of people that we wanted to thank regarding the podcast and, everything that they've done. I don't know, why don't you go first?
Well, I'd like to thank, first of all, my family. Obviously, Mila, my wife, Eddie and Logan, my kids. They put up with listening to PixelTunes in the car, while I'm putting it together, making sure all the volume levels are right. My wife for keeping my kids quiet when I'm recording things downstairs, or I have to be away for 2 or 3 hours on a Sunday morning or a weeknight like tonight as we record stuff.
And for doing the title cards, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Mila's done almost every single one of our title cards. I've been doing a few of them for the last few shows, but for the first at least 100, she was doing them.
Yeah. I think I only did maybe 2 of them myself.
Yeah, so it's been fantastic having her around to help with that stuff. wouldn't be able to probably play a lot of the games, like the Nintendo and kids games. Like, I really wasn't into Nintendo that much at all when we started this show. And as Logan grew up and started getting really into Nintendo, and I got into, like, you know, Yoshi, and I'm starting to see video games through a kid's eyes again by playing with him. So I credit him specifically a lot for a lot of the Nintendo and Switch stuff that I've been playing lately. So I want to thank him for that.
Cool. Well, I'd like to thank my wife. So Patty, I appreciate all the hard work that she did on the commercials that she's done. She's
done a lot too.
She's done so many. I mean, she was the voice of so many female characters. I can't even name them all. You know, off the top of my head, she did Tifa Lockhart a couple times. She did Samus. She did Poison from Final Fight. She's done the female character from Nick Carney.
Nick Carney.
Yeah, she did the female Nick Carney. Done Lara Croft. Just like, you know, for her to step up and help out. You know, she's always kind of been a background player in a lot of ways. Yeah, I guess I would say her primarily. I don't really have anybody else to thank.
Well, there's always Harley and Zelda.
Well, yeah, of course, Harley and Zelda. Zelda for coming in here every Sunday morning and walking all over everything, me shooing her away, and Harley coming in when Patty's not around because he wants to play and barking and stuff and distracting us, so...
it just helped our editing skills.
Oh, yeah.
Your pets help our editing skills.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, well, let's thank our guests. God, we've had so many guests over the years. Cam Childs of the Mad Gear, we did Tough Tunes with him.
Final Fight.
Yep, Cameron Worm, we did Epic Endings.
Yep.
And then we did one other show with him, too.
Epic Intros, I think.
I think we did Intros and Endings with him. Aaron Hickman, we did Unreleased Gems.
Yep.
Scott, we did the racing episode,
Yep.
and he did Scott's Picks way back at the beginning when we were so original doing Scott's Picks. Brian, I don't know how to pronounce his last
Brian
name.
Szynski.
Yeah. He did the Point and Click episode, he did the John Baker episode, and Brian's Picks.
Yeah.
Brendan Wilson, my brother, he did the Sega CD episode, and I think that was it. That was
and Brian, I'd like to... Well, you did the Sega CD episode for Brendan, and also he did the...
Was it Rock and Metal?
Brendan's Picks.
Brendan's Picks, which is mostly Rock and Metal.
Mostly Rock and Metal. Scott, I want to say thank you to again for stepping in and helping out, you know, with you know, picking tracks for episodes, especially that early on. I think he was one of our first guests.
He was, yeah.
Yeah, Scott.
Brian and Scott were both very early.
Yeah, definitely. Guests. Yeah, Brian, who had a huge lapse. Brian, I also want to say thank you to creating our logo. He was the founder of creating the initial logo, so the one that we have on the banner here. Todd, we can't thank Todd enough for
He's been
the
on
multiple
so many episodes. He guest
hosted Metroid, Zelda.
Yeah. The Industrial Strength episode that he and I co-hosted when you were getting married.
Yep.
Lots and lots of... And Todd's Picks, of course.
Todd's Picks, but then also... what was that episode? The Quintet. Yeah, that was an awesome episode.
Yeah, and that was one we never would have done without him.
And
we played so much good stuff on
Definitely.
that. So Justin Schneider, who's going to be your future co-host on VGM Radio, he did the Wario episode, like you said.
Yeah, he stepped in, did the Wario episode, and then the Super NES Deep Cuts.
Correct.
Yep. Avalanche Jared, huge thank you to him for doing the Silent Hill episode. You know, was a really great episode that I learned a lot about the Silent Hill franchise. Nicola Gutierrez, I always butcher his name. All of us know him as Nico, aka the Wii Guy.
Right.
Worked on NES episode with NES like Hidden Gems, Famicom episodes.
Nico's definitely introduced us both to a lot of NES tunes that we probably never would have heard before, especially like Gavin Raeburn. I mean, he's a composer that I was not aware of until he came around, and I'm glad that I heard of him because now I just played an awesome track from him. So
Matt Ezro, my buddy, Cygnus Destroyer, LJ, and Defender.
Fantastic guy.
Great guest. Loved having him on for... I believe we did Cygnus Destroyer's picks, and then we did the TMNT episode. And I don't think we had him on for anything else. I think that was it.
Right.
But they were just phenomenal episodes. A lot of nostalgia, a lot of history, a lot of really great music.
Yep.
Corey and Keaton, the Player's Score, that episode that none of us were really big fans of nowadays, but we look back on it as a stepping stone for us to be able to host other guests. We learned how to work with multiple different people from all over the country, all over the world. So that was a huge step in helping us being able to record with composers too.
Yeah, exactly. And you're gonna see probably most, if not all, of these guests probably on our future shows at some point as well. Especially with my model of having a special guest on almost every episode. Yeah. I'm sure I'll be burning through lots of guest hosts.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
You haven't seen the last of most of these guys.
No, they'll be on both of our shows. I've got plans to reach out to a couple of them in the future, in the distant future. But we do have a guest coming for episode 4 of XVGM.
Very cool. And speaking of which, guest VGM podcast hosts, of course, Brian and James from Pixelated Audio. They've been there almost since the beginning. I reached out to Brian very early on because I listened to a couple of his shows and absolutely love them, and we've become very close friends ever since. Brian and I do Impulse Project together.
Right.
That will continue. We are on a long hiatus right now because Brian's just got way too much going on. That show will come back eventually, and we're already in discussion to do episode of VG Embassy together as well. He and I have been talking about having some sort of a relationship between VG Embassy and Pixelated Audio, maybe doing regular crossovers. Nothing is cemented, but I think we'll definitely have some sort of a relationship there. Emily and Josh, obviously from VGM Jukebox, one of my favorite VGM podcasts of all time. Both very gracious hosts. They've been on our show. We've been on their show.
Yep.
Emily and I are extremely close friends at this point. We want to thank them for everything they've done. And Robin Purnell, our buddies.
Rhythm and Pixels.
From Wilmington, Delaware. They're great guys. Put on a fantastic show as well. We hung out with most of these people at the Retro World Expo and had a grand time, and we hope to hang out with them again. Speaking of which... Retro World Expo, the panel is still going to go on, right?
Yeah, as far as I know, yeah. I mean, again, nothing is finalized.
Well, what I'm saying is it's not being canceled because PixelTunes is ended. We are definitely going to still do it.
If
We're
anything,
both going to be there.
If anything, we'll add on more members because, if we were going to do it, I would add on Justin because he's a part of the crew now. So, yeah, we would have everybody. We expect to hopefully host something, but again, stay in tune with both XVGM Radio and also VG Embassy, so that way you can stay up to date with that information. I'm kind of spearheading that one, so look for the information in both places.
Exactly.
I'll let Ed know as soon as I find out any details. So
right on.
Yep. For guest composers, I worked my butt off to get these people on our show, and I was always very satisfied with the end result. Matt Furness, fantastic composer and really good friend to the podcast, so we want to thank him for the episode that he was on. We learned so much about the Sega Genesis and its hardware, and
that was a great show. Still one of my favorites of all time.
Absolutely. And then Matt Creamer, aka Norn Rad.
I think that's the only composer I actually got on the show.
Yeah.
The rest, but
I think we kind of all worked.
I was like, hey,
together.
have you ever heard? Well, I think what happened was we played. It was a fan picks episode, so thanks to our fans for that.
Yeah, we picked a Venture Kid.
I don't remember who it was, but it was Venture Kid.
I knew who he was, but then you were like, this is great, I'm going to reach out to him. And I think you got that ball rolling.
Yeah, well, I took a look at his social media stuff just to see what kind of a personality he had, if he'd work on the show. And then I saw that he had his own channel talking about him composing music, and I was like, perfect. So I got a call out to him, and again, a fantastic episode.
Great episode.
A lot of talk, but a lot of such good information. And
that was one of our longer ones. Matt can talk, and you know what though? I am totally okay with it because he produces gold every time he opens his mouth. And same thing with the keys. So
and speaking of which, Venture Kid just came out PS4
on
and Steam, so it's no longer a mobile game only. So go check that one out and support Matt Creamer's music as well.
John Baker, who I want to thank, it was really cool to sit down and talk to him. Definitely more of a musician and composer first, and not as much into the VGM stuff, but it was really cool to learn so much about his process, how he works, where, his background, learning all about how he does the music that he does. Really cool, jazz musician, big into jazz, funk, all that type of stuff. We covered that. That's still, in my opinion, one of our most underrated episodes. We really didn't get a ton of feedback on that one, but I also kind of feel like maybe people didn't know who he was.
I wasn't on that episode either, so people probably just like me.
That's true.
They just don't listen to shows on that.
Yep, that's true. No, John Baker was a lot of fun. I want to thank Brian especially for jumping in so late to the game to help co-host that one. That was a lot of fun. We learned a ton of information about that. And about the Sega Genesis and how John Baker composed for it. And last but not least, Iku Mizutani, as far as the guest composers go, my favorite composer. I worked for months to get this guy on the show. Unfortunately, we weren't able to interview him in the sense that
it wasn't a live interview.
It wasn't a live interview where we could talk to him over Skype or whatever, but we asked him some fantastic questions, thanks to Brian from Pixelated Audio, so thanks for jumping in and helping out with the translation and also being on that episode to kind of feed us the info almost as if he was Iku Mizutani, which that at first I was kind of against that, but looking back on it, like, I don't think that there's any other way I would have preferred it. So,
right, exactly.
Definitely huge shout out to Brian for doing that for us. And then also, we wanted to thank everyone who submitted music to our fan favorite shows.
And I'll just list most of them down. So Kevin Thomas, Cole Simon, Ty Dunitz, Vasily Bochkov, Magma Dragoon, Alexander Hunt, George Philby, Alex Messenger, Daniel Lawton, Matt Waller, Joe Morolo, Daniel Greenberg, Dan Martinez, Mike McDaniel, Cam Mount, Joe Barub, and Jeff Leopard. There's a few standouts on that list.
Yep.
Obviously, people not just didn't submit fan favorites, but have also been huge parts of our community.
Yep.
Mike McDaniel's been there almost from the beginning, one of our biggest and most vocal fans.
Yeah, Cam Worma, Mike McDaniel. I also want to give a huge shout out to Jeff Leopard, who I have a great relationship with. He's a really good friend of mine, and I really appreciate all the hard work that he's done, not only on Dude You Haven't Played This Game on YouTube, but also, he's done some stuff for us where he did like an awesome Elemental Masters remix.
I love that track. I love
cover.
That song that he wrote. I was so thrilled that I could hear like almost a commissioned live version of that song.
Jeff has great turnaround time too. He's dedicated. And he's just a great friend. So we really appreciate all the hard work that he put into the podcast as well, helping us out.
Absolutely. Generally awesome people who have contributed in other ways. This is kind of a miscellaneous section. Alberto Jose Gonzalez, obviously a composer, but also has listened to our show, has given us feedback when we've either messed up or added some more information to enhance our conversation. Thank you so much for that. Barry Leach,
same thing.
Exactly the same thing.
Yep.
Always available. I message him often whenever we play a track of his to see if I can get some more detail about stuff. Jason Cirillo, one of my friends from way back, he gave us the Whoa Dave exclusive on our first indie show.
Dave.
And now he's a part of Choice Provisions and a part of Runner 3, which is a huge indie game which is coming out. Ariel Schneider, who is Justin's wife, she did a lot of sketch voices for us, most of like the perky, bubbly woman voices.
Selfie, she did the voice of Selfie in the Final Fantasy episode. Justin as well, I want to thank him for doing some of the voices on that episode as well.
Yep. Ryu Hayabusa.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, constant guest, always doing voices for our sketches. Great dude
Snake.
all around. He was a co-host as well.
Yep.
Great
and,
guys.
A Bobo. Yep. As long as we're thanking the whole world, I want to thank a guy I know by the name of Earl.
That guy with the hat.
Yep.
Who else, man? I mean, there's so many people out there that we want to thank. Just regular posters on our VGM Facebook group.
We hope that you all successfully migrate over from one Facebook group to another. Not that you don't have to leave PixelTunes. We want to keep PixelTunes open.
We're still going to stay in PixelTunes.
Yeah, we're still going to keep it open.
As long as people are still posting awesome content, I don't see any reason to close it down.
Yeah, it's a great community, and we more or less want to use PixelTunes as a stepping stool for our new shows. So again, Ed's show is located at...
It'll be the VGEmbassy.com, as long as that URL's not taken. I'm pretty sure it's not. We will have links to the new shows on PixelTunesRadio.com. We'll have it on our blog roll. We'll have it on the Facebook group. We'll have it on Twitter. So, wherever you go, you'll be able to be redirected to our new shows, and there won't be any kind of confusion there. I won't be taking anything down. You'll still be able to go to pixeltunesradio.com and download our MP3s of our stuff.
The YouTube links will still remain up. You can go back if you haven't listened to all the episodes. You can go back right from the start all the way up to this episode and listen to every single episode of Pixel Tunes Radio on youtube.com/dongled. That'll also be the new home or video home of XVGM Radio, which is also at xvgmradio.com, as well as on Twitter at XVGM Radio and Facebook.com/groups/XVGM Radio.
Awesome. I'm not sure if the VG Embassy is going to have a YouTube presence. I'm kind of toying around with that. I know, obviously, we will be on iTunes. That's the primary place you'll be able to find it.
Yep.
As well as other places. Any RSS feeds will be available. But YouTube, it might not be the actual full show, but it might have bonus content on YouTube. So I will let you guys know more about that.
Yeah. On my end, we have a Patreon planned. Nothing's official yet. We want to basically get as many episodes as possible down initially just to gain general interest, and then, hopefully a lot of you guys follow both of our shows. You follow over from Pixel Tunes Radio over to XVGM Radio and VG Embassy. So
yes,
we hope that that's the case and that you guys will listen and contribute. So
for sure,
absolutely.
Did you say which date your show was starting? I don't know.
Yes, June 13th. So literally 2 weeks from. So this episode is out the 30th of May. So the very first episode of XVGM Radio will be back on schedule on Pixel Tunes Radio's normal schedule, which is every other Wednesday. That's what we had initially.
Right.
So I'm going to be taking that spot back. So every other Wednesday, you'll get to listen to a new episode of XVGM Radio.
Very, very cool.
Yes.
And mine will be starting about a month later. So, it's
like July, right?
It's going to be July. It's going to be either July 6th or the 13th. I think a lot of that depends on... I commissioned some amazing artwork from the same woman who did the artwork for VGM Jukebox, and it really depends on when she can get me that artwork done. Once that's done, then I can get all the branding set up, and then the show will be ready to go. So probably the first Friday after I get the artwork finalized, then I will put the show up. But I will obviously let you guys know, and I'll also let Mike know, so maybe, if you guys are listening to XVGM, he could clue you in onto when VG Embassy will be starting as well. That would be very nice of him if he could do that for me. Sure. All right, guys, well, I would love to hear on the Facebook group your memories, your favorite VGM, your favorite Pixel Tunes Radio moments, your favorite shows,
favorite episodes, favorite guests.
If you need consolation, we'll be there to
give you
a shoulder
hug
to cry on.
Yep.
And but like I said, this isn't goodbye at all. This is just simply hello in a different way.
Right.
So, and that's why we're kind of going out with this track. This is the outro theme from Mega Man X, and Mike suggested it to me, and I'm not a huge Mega Man or Mega Man X fan, but I felt like this is the end of a game. How many Mega Man X's are there at this point? 8?
Yeah, the thing that's nice about this track is it's sad, but it's also uplifting because towards the end you know that there's going to be a new beginning, and it kind of sets up the sequel to Mega Man X2, and so we wanted to kind of leave that off. Originally we were going to do Super Castlevania 4. I was like, nope, that's way too sad. Way too sad. So Mega Man X is our outro track on Pixel Tunes Radio. This is Mike
and Ed signing off for the last time. Bye, guys. We will miss you, and we love you, and we'll see you soon on our respective shows.
Bye.
Bye.
So the first track that I chose is from the Terminator Sega CD game. Now there's a little bit of confusion for this song as far as who wrote it. On the internet, of course, as you know, the internet's a dark, scary place. Creepy, scary place, right?
Doesn't scare me.
Scares me a little bit. I don't know. It's creepy. There's furry porn out there. Just saying. That's scary.
Maybe I make half of that porn.
All right. So I don't know Ed anymore. So the show is all about me.